Introduction: The Power of Being 1% Better. Welcome to the Transformative World of Atomic Habits by James Clear. This book has sold over 20 million copies worldwide, and for good reason. It contains the distilled wisdom of behavioral psychology, neuroscience, and real-world success stories, all woven together to help you understand one fundamental truth. Remarkable results don't require remarkable actions. They require remarkable consistency in small actions. Imagine standing in a room where the temperature is 25 degrees Fahrenheit. An ice cube sits on the table in front of you, solid and unchanging. Slowly, the room begins to warm. 26 degrees, the ice remains frozen. 27 degrees, still no change. 28, 29, 30 degrees. The ice cube sits there, seemingly immune to the rising temperature. 31 degrees, nothing. Then, at 32 degrees, suddenly the ice begins to melt. A 1-degree shift, seemingly no different from the temperature increases before it, has unlocked a dramatic transformation. This is the power of atomic habits, tiny changes that appear to make no difference until they cross a critical threshold and unlock a new level of performance. The word atomic has 3 meanings here. First, atomic habits are small, the fundamental units of larger systems. Second, they're the component parts of remarkable results. And third, they're a source of immense energy or power, just like splitting an atom releases enormous force. James Clear discovered this truth through personal tragedy that became the catalyst for understanding how small habits compound into life-changing results. But before we dive into his story, let me share why this book matters so much in our current age. We live in a world obsessed with overnight success, transformation stories, and dramatic before and after photos. Social media bombards us with highlight reels of radical change, yet research shows that nearly 90% of New Year's resolutions fail by February. Clearly, our approach to change is broken. What if the problem isn't our willpower or motivation? What if the problem is our strategy? What if, instead of trying to make radical changes, we focused on being just 1% better each day? This approach might seem too slow, too small, too insignificant, but mathematics tells a different story. If you improve by just 1% each day, you'll be 37 times better by the end of the year. That's not a 37% improvement. That's 37 times better. The compound effect of daily improvements is staggering. Chapter 1. A life-changing accident picture. A warm afternoon at a high school baseball field in central Ohio. The year is 2002. James Clear, a sophomore at Denison High School, stands in the batter's box during practice. He's been playing baseball since he was 5 years old, dreaming of playing professionally like many American kids. The sun hangs low in the sky, casting long shadows across the diamond. His teammate steps up to take batting practice, gripping the bat tightly, ready to swing. What happened next would change James's life forever. As his teammate took a full swing, the bat slipped from his hands. Time seemed to slow as the bat helicoptered through the air, but there was no time to react. The bat struck James directly in the face with devastating force. The impact was so severe it drove his nose bone back into his skull, shattering facial bones and creating multiple skull fractures. James crumpled to the ground, unable to breathe properly through his destroyed nose. Blood poured from his face. His teammates stood frozen in shock before rushing to help. As they tried to assist him, James's body began shutting down. He lost consciousness for the first time as they carried him off the field. He would lose consciousness again in the car ride to the hospital, his brain swelling from the trauma. The next months were a blur of hospital rooms, surgeries, and slow recovery. Doctors performed emergency surgery to reconstruct his nose and repair the damage. He suffered from severe headaches, double vision, and cognitive difficulties from the brain injury. Basic tasks became monumental challenges. Walking down the hallway at school left him exhausted. His grades plummeted as he struggled to concentrate. The baseball career he'd dreamed of seemed impossibly out of reach. But this is where the story takes an unexpected turn. During his recovery, James began to notice something profound about the rehabilitation process. Progress didn't come in dramatic leaps. It came in tiny, almost imperceptible improvements. One day he could walk a little farther without getting dizzy. Another day he could focus on homework for 5 minutes longer. Each small win built upon the previous one. When James returned to baseball his junior year, reality hit hard. He wasn't the same player. He'd lost significant ground to his peers. The coach relegated him to junior varsity, a crushing blow for someone who'd always excelled at the sport. He barely played his senior year, spending most games on the bench. College baseball seemed like an impossible dream, yet he refused to give up. When he enrolled at Denison University, he approached the baseball coach about joining the team. The coach's response was polite but clear. They didn't have a spot for him. He could practice with the team if he wanted, but there were no guarantees. For many, this would have been the end of the story. For James, it was the beginning of an experiment that would change his life and eventually impact millions of others. Chapter 2: The Discovery of Atomic Habits. Unable to make the baseball team, James faced a choice. He could accept defeat, or he could control what he could control. He chose the latter, beginning with the smallest possible changes. First, he committed to sleeping at a reasonable hour, something most college students struggle with. While his peers stayed up until 2 or 3 in the morning, James was in bed by 11. This single change had ripple effects. He woke up feeling refreshed. He had energy for morning classes. His grades began to improve. Next, he tackled his living space. He made his bed every morning and kept his dorm room clean and organized. These seem like trivial changes, but they had profound psychological effects. Starting each day with a small accomplishment set a positive tone. Returning to an organized room reduced stress and improved focus. He discovered what researchers would later confirm. Our physical environment significantly impacts our mental state and behaviors. James then added consistent study habits. Instead of cramming before exams like most students, he studied a little each day. He took detailed notes in class and reviewed them that evening. Again, nothing dramatic, just small, consistent actions. His grades continued climbing. Finally, he committed to strength training. He'd always been skinny, which disadvantaged him in baseball. He started going to the gym 4 days per week, following a simple program. He didn't miss workouts. Rain or shine, tired or energized, he showed up. His body began changing. More importantly, his confidence grew. Here's what makes this story remarkable. None of these habits were revolutionary. Millions of people know they should sleep better, stay organized, study regularly, and exercise. The difference was consistency. James never missed. He understood something most people don't. The goal isn't to be perfect, it's to be consistent. The compound effect began working its magic. By his sophomore year, things started clicking. His improved fitness and consistent practice earned him a spot on the baseball team. Not just any spot, he became a starter. By his junior year, he was voted team captain. His senior year brought the ultimate validation. He was named Denison University's Male Athlete of the Year, earned the President's Medal for Academic Achievement, and was inducted into Phi Beta Kappa. He set 8 school records in baseball, but James's transformation went deeper than awards and accolades. Through his experience, he discovered fundamental truths about human behavior and change. He realized that we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. He understood that identity change precedes behavior change. Most importantly, he learned that small habits compound like interest in a savings account, slowly at first, then suddenly. These insights launched James on a new path. He became obsessed with understanding habits, diving into research from psychology, neuroscience, and behavioral economics. He started a blog sharing his discoveries. That blog grew to over 1 million subscribers. His articles on habits were read by millions. Eventually, this led to writing Atomic Habits, which would become one of the best-selling self-help books of all time. Chapter 3: Why Tiny Changes Make a Big Difference. To understand why atomic habits are so powerful, we need to grasp the mathematics of improvement. This isn't abstract theory, it's practical math that governs success and failure in every area of life. Let's start with a thought experiment. Imagine you have a choice between 2 options. Option A, someone gives you $1 million today. Option B, someone gives you 1 penny today but doubles it every day for 30 days. Which would you choose? Most people instinctively choose the $1,000,000. It seems like the obvious choice. But let's do the math. Day 1, 1 penny. Day 2, 2 pennies. Day 3, 4 pennies. After a week, you'd have just 64 cents. After 2 weeks, about $81. Still seems like the million was the better choice, right? But here's where compound interest becomes magical. By day 20, you'd have about $5,000. By day 25, about $167,000. And by day 30, over $5 million. This is the power of compounding, and it applies directly to habits. When you improve by just 1% each day, the results follow the same explosive pattern. For most of the journey, it seems like nothing is happening. Then suddenly, the results become remarkable. This explains why so many people give up on positive changes. They're living in what Clear calls the valley of disappointment. The valley of disappointment is the gap between what you expect to happen and what actually happens when you start a new habit. We expect linear progress, a straight line from where we are to where we want to be. If I start exercising, I expect to see muscles growing week by week. If I start saving money, I expect to feel wealthier month by month. If I start writing, I expect to see my skills improve chapter by chapter. But reality doesn't work this way. Progress compounds, which means results are delayed. You might exercise for a month and see minimal changes. You might save for 6 months and still feel broke. You might write for a year and still struggle with the same problems. Most people interpret this as failure. They think, this isn't working, I should quit. They don't realize they're accumulating potential energy like water building up behind a dam. Then comes the breakthrough. What looks like overnight success to outsiders but is actually the result of consistent effort finally crossing a critical threshold. The dam breaks and results flood in. This is why the outside world sees overnight successes everywhere, while the people experiencing that success know it was years in the making. Cancer researchers understand this principle intimately. Cancer cells double at a consistent rate. For most of their existence, they're undetectable. A single cancer cell doubles to become 2, 2 become 4, 4 become 8. After doubling 30 times, you have about 1 billion cancer cells, still only about 1 cubic centimeter, often too small to detect. But after 40 doublings, you have 1 trillion cells, about 1 kilogram of tissue. The cancer seems to appear suddenly, but it's been growing steadily all along. Success follows the same pattern. Your habits might be working even when you can't see results yet. This is why patience and faith in the process are crucial. Every action you take is like depositing money into a savings account. You might not see much difference day to day, but the compound interest is working. One day you'll check your balance and be amazed at what's accumulated. Chapter 4: The Science of Identity Change. Now, we arrive at perhaps the most profound insight in atomic habits. True behavior change is identity change. Most people approach change backwards. They focus on what they want to achieve, the outcome. I want to lose 30 pounds. I want to write a best-selling novel. I want to run a marathon. This seems logical, but it's actually the hardest path to lasting change. To understand why, we need to explore the 3 layers of behavior change. Picture 3 concentric circles. The outer ring represents outcomes, what you get. These are your results: losing weight, publishing a book, winning a championship. The middle ring represents processes, what you do. These are your habits and systems, your workout routine, your writing schedule, your training plan. The inner ring represents identity, what you believe. These are your beliefs about yourself, your self-image, your worldview, your judgments about yourself and others. Most people work from the outside in. They set a goal, outcome, create a plan, process, and hope it sticks. But lasting change works from the inside out. You start with identity, which drives process, which delivers outcomes. The difference is profound. When you focus on identity, you're not trying to achieve something, you're trying to become someone. Consider 2 people at a party who are offered cigarettes. The first person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit smoking." The second says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." On the surface, both are declining cigarettes, but psychologically, they're in completely different places. The first person still identifies as a smoker who is attempting to change. The second has shifted their identity. They are a non-smoker, period. This might seem like semantic games, but neuroscience reveals profound differences in how our brains process identity-based decisions versus goal-based decisions. When your behavior matches your identity, it feels natural and requires less willpower. When your behavior conflicts with your identity, it creates cognitive dissonance that your brain works to resolve, usually by abandoning the behavior. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes accumulate, so does the evidence of your new identity. Each time you write a page, you're casting a vote for being a writer. Each time you practice violin, you're casting a vote for being a musician. Each time you resist junk food, you're casting a vote for being a healthy person. This explains why habits are so powerful. They're not just actions, they're evidence of identity. When you make your bed each morning, you're not just organizing sheets. You're proving to yourself that you're the type of person who takes care of their environment. When you go to the gym, you're not just exercising. You're reinforcing your identity as someone who prioritizes fitness. The beautiful part is you don't need to be perfect. You just need to win the majority of votes. If you eat healthy foods 80% of the time, you're still a healthy eater. If you write 4 days a week instead of 7, you're still a writer. Your identity emerges from your habits, and your habits emerge from your identity. It's a virtuous cycle that builds momentum over time. This approach also explains why willpower-based change usually fails. When you rely on willpower, you're fighting against your identity. It's exhausting. But when your habits align with your identity, they feel natural. You're not forcing yourself to go to the gym. You're simply being who you are, an athlete. You're not struggling to avoid junk food. You're acting in accordance with your identity as a healthy person. Chapter 5. The FourStep Pattern of All Habits. To change your habits effectively, you must understand how they work at a neurological level. Every habit, from brushing your teeth to checking your phone, follows the same four-step pattern. Understanding this pattern gives you the power to build good habits and break bad ones. Charles Duhigg popularized the three-step habit loop: cue, routine, reward. Clear expands this to 4 steps that more accurately reflect the psychological process: cue, craving, response, and reward. Let's explore each step through a common modern habit: checking your phone. You're working on an important project when your phone buzzes: cue. Immediately you feel a desire to know who messaged you: craving. You pick up your phone and check the notification: response. You satisfy your curiosity and perhaps get a small hit of social validation: reward. This entire process might take 10 seconds, but it perfectly illustrates the habit loop. The cue is the trigger that initiates the behavior. Cues generally fall into 5 categories: time, location, emotional state, other people, and immediately preceding action. Your brain is constantly scanning the environment for cues that predict rewards. This scanning happens below conscious awareness. You don't think, my phone buzzed, which means someone might have messaged me, which would satisfy my need for social connection. The association happens instantly and automatically. The craving is the motivational force, the desire that powers the habit. This is crucial to understand. You don't crave the habit itself. You crave the change in state it delivers. You don't crave smoking a cigarette. You crave the feeling of relief it provides. You don't crave scrolling social media. You crave the distraction from difficult work. Every craving is linked to a desire to change your internal state. The response is the actual habit, the thought or action you perform. Whether a response occurs depends on 2 factors: motivation and ability. You need sufficient motivation, strong enough craving, and the ability to perform the behavior. If either is insufficient, the behavior won't happen. You might crave ice cream motivation, but if there's none in your house and the store is closed, lack of ability, you won't eat it. The reward is the end goal, the satisfaction that completes the loop. Rewards serve 2 purposes. First, they satisfy the craving. The curiosity about who messaged you is resolved. Second, they teach your brain which actions are worth remembering. When a behavior is rewarded, your brain notes the cue behavior reward pattern for future use. This is how habits form. Your brain is a reward detector. It's constantly running cost-benefit analyses below your conscious awareness. If a behavior delivers more reward than effort, your brain marks it for repetition. This is why checking your phone is so habit-forming. It delivers variable rewards, sometimes interesting, sometimes boring, for minimal effort, just a thumb swipe. Understanding this loop is powerful because it reveals why some habits are so hard to break. Take procrastination. You're working on a challenging task, cue difficulty, you feel stressed or overwhelmed, craving, desire for relief, you switch to browsing the internet, response, avoidance behavior, you temporarily feel better, reward, stress relief. Your brain learns, when work feels hard, internet browsing provides relief. The habit strengthens with each repetition. But here's the empowering part. Once you understand the loop, you can hack it. You can design better cues, redirect cravings, make good responses easier and bad ones harder, and create more satisfying rewards. This is the foundation of the 4 laws of behavior change, which we'll explore next. Each law corresponds to one step of the habit loop, giving you a systematic way to build good habits and break bad ones. Chapter 6. The first law, make it obvious. The first law of behavior change is make it obvious, and it corresponds to the cue phase of the habit loop. This law is about designing your environment and awareness to support the habits you want to build. Most of our habits are invisible to us. We perform them automatically without conscious thought. The first step in changing habits is bringing them into conscious awareness. Clear recommends starting with a habit scorecard, a simple but powerful exercise. Take a piece of paper and write down everything you do from the moment you wake up. Wake up, check phone, get out of bed, use bathroom, weigh yourself, shower, dry off, brush teeth, get dressed, make coffee, check email, eat breakfast. The list might contain 50 to 100 items by day's end. Next, mark each habit with a plus sign, positive, minus sign, negative, or equal sign, neutral. This isn't about judging yourself, it's about awareness. You might discover you check your phone 12 times before leaving the house. You might notice you always skip breakfast when running late. These unconscious patterns shape your days and, ultimately, your life. Once you have awareness, you can use implementation intentions to build new habits. This strategy, discovered by psychologist Peter Gollwitzer, involves creating a specific plan for when and where you'll perform a new habit. The formula is simple. I will behavior at time in location. Instead of I'll meditate more, you decide I will meditate for 10 minutes at 7 a.m. in my living room. Research shows implementation intentions dramatically increase follow-through. In one study, participants who used implementation intentions to exercise were 91% successful compared to 35% for the control group. The specificity eliminates decision-making. When 7 a.m. arrives and you're in your living room, you know exactly what to do. There's no negotiation, no willpower needed, just execution. But Clear takes this further with habit stacking, a technique that leverages habits you already have. Every day you perform dozens of automatic behaviors. You make coffee, you eat lunch, you brush your teeth. These established habits can become triggers for new ones. The formula, after current habit, I will new habit. Examples bring this to life. After I pour my morning coffee, I will write in my gratitude journal. After I sit down for lunch, I will read one article. After I close my laptop for the day, I will review tomorrow's schedule. You're piggybacking new behaviors onto established neural pathways, making adoption easier. Environment design is perhaps the most powerful application of the first law. We like to think we're in control, but environment shapes behavior more than we realize. If you want to practice guitar, don't leave it in the closet. Put it in the living room where you'll see it. If you want to eat fruit, don't hide it in the crisper. Put it in a bowl on the counter. Make the cues for good habits obvious in your environment. The inverse works for breaking bad habits. Make cues invisible. If you waste time on your phone, don't charge it in your bedroom. If you eat too much junk food, don't buy it. If you watch too much TV, unplug it after each use. You're not relying on willpower, you're designing an environment where good choices are easy and bad choices are hard. James Clear discovered this personally when trying to reduce his phone usage. He started leaving his phone in another room while working. The simple friction of having to stand up and walk to check it dramatically reduced mindless scrolling. He didn't need superhuman discipline, just smart environment design. Chapter 7. The Second Law. Make it attractive. The second law of behavior change is make it attractive, targeting the craving phase of the habit loop. The more attractive an opportunity appears, the more likely it becomes habit forming. This law leverages our brain's reward system to make good habits irresistible and bad habits unappealing. To understand this law, we need to explore dopamine, the neurotransmitter driving desire. Common misconception: dopamine is about pleasure. Reality: dopamine is about anticipation of pleasure. Brain scan studies reveal dopamine spikes when we anticipate reward, not when we receive it. This explains why scrolling social media is so addictive. Each swipe might reveal something interesting. The anticipation keeps us hooked. This anticipation principle explains many puzzling behaviors. Why do people spend hours planning vacations but feel let down on the actual trip? Why is Christmas Eve often more exciting than Christmas Day? Why do gamblers keep pulling slot machine levers despite losing money? In each case, anticipation drives behavior more than outcomes. You can leverage this through temptation bundling, pairing actions you want to do with actions you need to do. The term comes from behavioral economist Katie Milkman, who wanted to exercise more but also loved watching TV. Her solution: she only allowed herself to watch her favorite shows while at the gym. Exercise became more attractive because it was bundled with entertainment. Ronan Byrne, an engineering student, took this concept to the extreme. He loved Netflix but needed to exercise, so he hacked an exercise bike to connect with his laptop, writing code that only allowed Netflix to play while he pedaled. Stop pedaling, Netflix paused. Resume pedaling, Netflix resumed. He'd created a temptation bundle that made exercise irresistible. You can apply this principle without engineering skills. Only listen to audiobooks while walking. Only get your favorite coffee after completing morning pages. Only check social media after finishing focused work. You're not denying yourself pleasures, you're connecting them to positive behaviors. The role of social environment is crucial for making habits attractive. Humans are tribal creatures. We unconsciously adopt behaviors that help us fit in. This is why you're more likely to be overweight if your friends are overweight, more likely to smoke if your peers smoke, more likely to be happy if surrounded by happy people. We imitate three groups: the close, family and friends; the many, the tribe; and the powerful, those with status and prestige. Want to read more? Join a book club where reading is expected. Want to get fit? Train with people fitter than you. Want to build a business? Surround yourself with entrepreneurs. When your desired behavior is normal in your culture, it becomes attractive. You're not swimming against the social current, you're flowing with it. Reframing your mindset makes hard habits more attractive. Instead of "I have to go to the gym," try "I get to build a stronger body." Instead of "I have to study," try "I get to learn new skills." This isn't toxic positivity, it's highlighting the benefits you're choosing. You're not obligated to do these things, you're privileged to have the opportunity. Consider how marketing uses this principle. Nobody needs a luxury car for transportation. A basic vehicle works fine, but luxury brands make their products attractive by associating them with status, success, and sophistication. You can market habits to yourself the same way. Associate exercise with energy and confidence. Associate reading with wisdom and growth. Associate saving money with freedom and security. The inverse helps break bad habits, make them unattractive, highlight the costs instead of benefits. Smoking doesn't relieve stress, it creates physical addiction that causes stress. Junk food doesn't provide comfort, it leads to energy crashes and health problems. Procrastination doesn't reduce pressure, it amplifies anxiety. When you see habits accurately, their attraction often fades. Chapter 8. The Third Law. Make it easy. The third law of behavior change is make it easy, focusing on the response phase of the habit loop. This law counters our tendency to overthink, overplan, and overcomplicate change. The insight is simple but profound. The easier a behavior is to do, the more likely it becomes habit. We live in a culture that glorifies difficulty. No pain, no gain. Go hard or go home. Push yourself to the limit. This makes great motivational poster material, but terrible habit advice. Research consistently shows that humans follow the law of least effort. When choosing between two similar options, we naturally gravitate toward the one requiring less work. This isn't laziness, it's efficiency. Your brain evolved to conserve energy for survival. Instead of fighting this tendency, successful habit formation works with it. Make good habits so easy you can't say no. Make bad habits so difficult they're not worth the effort. This approach might seem too simple, but that's exactly why it works. The 2-minute rule embodies this principle. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to complete. Read before bed becomes read one page. Do yoga becomes roll out my yoga mat. Study for class becomes open my notes. Run 3 miles becomes put on my running shoes. This might seem like self-deception. Are you really going to get fit by just putting on running shoes? Are you really going to become a writer by writing one sentence? But you're missing the point. The 2-minute rule isn't about the results you achieve in 2 minutes. It's about mastering the habit of showing up. A habit must be established before it can be improved. You can't optimize something that doesn't exist. By making habits incredibly easy to start, you're removing the activation energy barrier. Once you start, continuing becomes easier. Physics calls this momentum. Psychology calls it the Zeigarnik effect, our tendency to finish what we start. Consider the story of the photography class at the University of Florida. Professor Jerry Uelsman divided his film photography students into 2 groups. The quantity group would be graded solely on the amount of work they produced. 100 photos earned an A, 90 earned a B, and so on. The quality group only needed to produce 1 photo, but it had to be perfect to earn an A. At semester's end, something fascinating emerged. All the best photos came from the quantity group. While the quality group theorized about perfection, the quantity group practiced. They experimented with composition and lighting. They learned from mistakes. They developed skills through repetition. By making photography easy, just take photos, they achieved excellence. This principle explains why perfectionists often struggle with habits. They want to meditate for 30 minutes, so they never start. They want to write 1,000 words, so the blank page paralyzes them. They want the perfect workout routine, so they never make it to the gym. Perfect is the enemy of good, and good is the enemy of started. Environment design returns here with a focus on friction. Every habit has friction, the number of steps between you and the behavior. Want to watch TV? You must find the remote, turn on the TV, navigate to your show. That's 3 steps of friction. Want to waste time on your phone? You just pull it from your pocket. That's 1 step of friction. Guess which habit is easier to fall into? You can manipulate friction to your advantage. Reduce friction for good habits. Prepare your workout clothes the night before. Keep healthy snacks at eye level. Leave your journal on your pillow. Increase friction for bad habits. Unplug the TV after use. Delete social media apps. Keep junk food on high shelves, or don't buy it at all. The power of easy compounds over time. When exercise means a grueling hour at the gym, you'll skip it when tired. When exercise means a 5-minute walk, you'll do it even on bad days. Those 5-minute walks add up to hours of movement. More importantly, they reinforce your identity as someone who exercises daily. The habit becomes part of who you are, making expansion natural. Chapter 9, the 4th law, make it satisfying. The 4th law of behavior change is make it satisfying, addressing the reward phase of the habit loop. This law solves a fundamental problem in habit formation. We repeat behaviors that are immediately rewarded and avoid behaviors that are immediately punished. But most good habits have delayed rewards, while bad habits offer instant gratification. Consider the challenge. Exercise is uncomfortable now but makes you healthy later. Saving money means less fun now but financial security later. Studying is boring now but leads to knowledge later. Meanwhile, eating junk food tastes good now. Scrolling social media entertains now. Procrastinating feels easier now. Your brain evolved to prioritize immediate rewards because for most of human history, the present mattered more than the distant future. To build good habits in our modern world, we need to hack this system by adding immediate satisfaction to behaviors with delayed rewards. The most effective way is habit tracking, the process of marking each day you complete your habit. This simple practice provides multiple benefits that make habits more satisfying. Jerry Seinfeld famously used this method to write jokes daily. He hung a large calendar on his wall and marked a red X for each day he wrote. After a few days, he had a chain of X's. His only job, don't break the chain. The X itself became rewarding. The visual progress motivated continuation. The chain represented his identity as a professional comedian who writes daily. Habit tracking works for 3 psychological reasons. First, it makes progress visible. When you're living in the valley of disappointment, it's easy to feel like nothing is happening. Tracking proves otherwise. You might not see physical changes from exercise, but you can see 30 X's proving you showed up. That evidence matters. Second, tracking creates its own reward. Marking the X releases a small hit of dopamine. You've accomplished something. This immediate satisfaction helps bridge the gap until long-term rewards arrive. Your brain learns, complete habit, feel good immediately. The association strengthens with repetition. Third, tracking keeps you honest. We're terrible at remembering our own behavior accurately. You might think you exercise regularly, but tracking reveals you only went to the gym 6 times last month. You might believe you rarely eat junk food, but tracking shows daily indulgences. Data doesn't lie. Awareness drives improvement. But what happens when you break the chain? This is where Clear's never miss twice rule becomes crucial. Missing once is human. Life intervenes, you get sick. Emergencies arise, travel disrupts routines. Missing once doesn't matter. Missing twice starts a new pattern, a pattern of not doing the habit. Think of it like a financial budget. Going over budget once won't ruin you. But if you ignore the overspending, it compounds. Soon you're in debt. Habits work similarly. One missed workout won't affect your fitness, but miss twice and it becomes easier to miss a third time. The chain of not exercising begins building. The never miss twice rule builds resilience while acknowledging imperfection. You're not aiming for a perfect record, you're aiming for quick recovery. Bad days don't define you, your response to bad days does. Get back on track immediately, and the missed day becomes insignificant noise in your larger pattern of success. Accountability partners add social satisfaction to habits. Tell someone about your commitment. Report your progress. Knowing someone expects updates changes the reward structure. Completing the habit avoids disappointment, immediate punishment, and earns approval, immediate reward. This is why workout partners, study groups, and book clubs succeed. They add social satisfaction to otherwise solitary activities. You can also create habit contracts, formal agreements that add immediate consequences to behaviors. Write down your commitment, the consequences for failing, and have someone witness it. The stakes don't need to be dramatic. You might agree to donate $10 to a political cause you oppose each time you skip a workout. The immediate financial sting makes skipping less attractive. For breaking bad habits, invert the 4th law, make it unsatisfying, add immediate consequences to unwanted behaviors. Some people put rubber bands on their wrists and snap them when tempted. Others use apps that lock their phones during work hours. The key is making the bad habit generate immediate negative feedback, counteracting its natural immediate rewards. Chapter 10: Advanced Tactics. Going from good to great. Once you've mastered the 4 laws, several advanced strategies can accelerate your progress from good to great. These tactics address the challenges that arise after habits become automatic, the plateaus, the boredom, and the subtle ways success can breed future failure. The Goldilocks rule states that humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks right on the edge of their current abilities. Not too easy, not too hard, just right. This optimal challenge zone keeps you engaged without overwhelming you. Too easy leads to boredom, too hard leads to anxiety. The sweet spot maintains flow state, that magical experience where time disappears and performance soars. Steve Martin's comedy career perfectly illustrates this principle. He didn't start performing hour-long specials. He began with 2-minute sets at small clubs. As those became comfortable, he expanded to 5 minutes, then 10, then 20. Each expansion pushed his abilities without breaking them. By the time he reached superstardom, selling out massive venues, hosting Saturday Night Live, starring in movies, he'd spent 18 years gradually expanding his comfort zone. The danger comes when habits become too automatic. When you can perform them without thinking, improvement stops. This is the dark side of habits. They can lock in mediocre performance as easily as excellent performance. The solution is deliberate practice combined with regular reflection and refinement. Consider the difference between naive practice and deliberate practice. Naive practice is repetition without intention, doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting improvement. Deliberate practice involves focused attention on specific components, immediate feedback, and repetition with refinement. A pianist practicing scales mindlessly for an hour achieves less than one practicing difficult passages for 20 minutes with full concentration. This is where the concept of variable rewards becomes important. Your brain loves surprises. Slot machines hook people not because they always pay out, but because they sometimes pay out unpredictably. You can use this principle ethically in habit design. Vary your workouts to prevent boredom. Explore new routes on your daily walk. Try different healthy recipes. The core habit remains consistent, but the details vary enough to maintain interest. Another advanced tactic is habit shaping, gradually morphing a habit toward your ultimate goal. Start where you are, not where you want to be. If your goal is meditation for an hour daily, but you currently meditate 0 minutes, don't jump straight to 60. Start with 2 minutes. Once that's automatic, expand to 5, then 10, then 20. Each expansion builds on established neural pathways. The concept of keystone habits deserves special attention. Some habits naturally trigger positive cascades. Exercise often leads to better eating, improved sleep, and increased productivity. Reading regularly expands vocabulary, improves focus, and reduces stress. Meditation enhances emotional regulation, decision-making, and creativity. By identifying and establishing keystone habits, you create positive domino effects throughout your life. But success creates its own challenges. What got you here won't get you there. The habits that help you lose the first 20 pounds might not help with the last 10. The writing routine that produced your first book might not work for your 10th. This is where regular reviews become crucial. Clear recommends annual reviews asking, what went well this year? What didn't go well? What did I learn? The Japanese concept of hansei, honest self-reflection, helps maintain growth after achieving success. Toyota famously uses hansei meetings where teams discuss failures and improvements without blame. You can apply this to personal habits.